When I was about to sign my name while going to get the marriage certificate with my husband, a voice suddenly rang out in my mind. Your husband not only secretly keeps a wife in the countryside, but he also had a child outside without telling you. That child is already 2 years old now. Because of that strange electronic voice, I hesitated to put pen to paper and sign my name. Seeing this, my husband, Demon, became a bit anxious. He urged repeatedly, Arya, hurry up and write. The staff is waiting. Don't keep them waiting. I glanced at him and simply put down the pen. Demon got even more anxious. He looked as if he wished he could sign on my behalf directly. Before he could speak again, a pained expression suddenly appeared on my originally calm face. Oh no, no. My stomach suddenly hurt so much. I can't hold it in. I need to go to the restroom first. Then, having so say, under the helpless expressions of the staff and Demon, I rushed into the public restroom in a hurry. The smell in the restroom wasn't pleasant. But at this moment, it came in handy. Demon and I got together when we were in college. To be honest, if it weren't for his gentleness and attentiveness that touched me back then, I wouldn't have agreed to his pursuit. We dated for 3 years. And he only took me back to his hometown once. Later, he said that the countryside was remote and it was not easy to make a trip back, so he didn't take me there anymore. At that time, besides us two, his parents, and there was another person in his family, a woman who was rather timid and submissive. Demon said she was his distant cousin, and because she had no relatives, she was staying at his home. However, I noticed that her physical contact with Demon was not only overly natural, but she also always avoided my gaze. Every time I was alone with her, she seemed to want to say something but held back. Even then, I thought this woman was strange. But I didn't think much about it at that time. Could the person it mentioned be this woman? Thinking of this, I tried to communicate with the voice in my mind using my thoughts. Who are you? Why should I believe you? Is the person you mentioned Demon's distant cousin? The electronic voice rang out in my mind again. Yes, Kelly's too. It's her. She's not his distant cousin. She's his child bride in waiting. As for me, I'm called Hope, a salvation system. Since I detected that you meet our criteria for a bound target, I've come to you. According to your original life trajectory, you will be killed by Demon through his schemes, and your family property will be seized. And in the end, Demon not only escapes legal sanctions, but also takes over your family's company as a matter of course, developing and expanding it step by step. He will gain both fame and fortune, while your family will be destroyed. I've come at just the right time. You don't need to pay any price. As long as you believe me, you can rewrite your life. Arya, are you willing to believe me? The information revealed by the system shocked me greatly. Although I was skeptical about its words, I couldn't help but ask, how did my parents die? Were they also killed by Demon? The system replied affirmatively. Of course. In order to seize your family's wealth, Demon has put in a lot of effort. From the moment he learned about your family background, he has woven a big net for you. Within just 1 year after marriage, your parents died in accidents one after another. First, it was your father. Demon tampered with his car, causing the brakes to fail, and your father died in a car crash. Subsequently, your mother was depressed because of your father's death. Demon, on the pretext of taking her out to relax, drove her to the mountains. When no one was paying attention, he pushed her off a cliff, and your mother died horribly. Finally, having fulfilled me, it was you. He tricked you into going diving. Before you could react, he damaged your diving equipment and drowned you in the sea. After the system finished speaking, I fell silent. I do love diving. When we were dating, I went diving with Demon several times. Whether the ending it described was true or not, I couldn't afford to take the risk. If I were alone, it might not matter, but I couldn't bet with my parents' lives. They doted on me and were the ones who loved me the most in the world. I couldn't bear the thought that they might die a tragic death because of me. Before I figure out the truth, I will definitely not get the marriage certificate with Demon. After learning of my decision, Hope Stone became much more excited. It reminded me again. You must never marry Demon. This is a fork in your fate. I nodded to show I understood. So, how are you going to decline? The system asked me. I raised my eyebrows and played a little trick on it. You'll find out later. With that, I lifted my feet and walked out of the restroom. Just as I reached the table where we were supposed to sign, before I could even sit down, Demon eagerly grabbed me. Arya, you're finally back. We've been waiting for you for so long. Hurry up and sign. They're about to get off work. Ever since I heard what the system told me, every time I see him now, I can't help but think of my parents' tragic end. Everyone has their own sore spot. My parents are mine. Seeing his eager look, I pulled my hand back and said something extremely willful. I suddenly don't want to get married anymore. Let's go back. The anxious expression on Demon's face froze. After a while, he reluctantly managed to tug at the corners of his mouth and asked tentatively, Arya, are you joking? I replied flatly. Of course not. I'm leaving. Are you coming or not? If not, you can take a taxi back later. After saying that, regardless of his expression, I turned around and left. The system was so shocked that its voice became a bit distorted. It stammered. This. You just said it like that? What else? I replied inferently. I don't owe him anything. I haven't had a wedding banquet with him. Nor have I asked for a bride price from him. To put it bluntly, the decision to come here and get the certificate with him today was made after much hesitation on my part. Originally, I didn't care about these things. After all, no matter how rich he is, I'm richer. As long as he treated me well, that would be enough. Now, even his so-called kindness to me is in doubt. What else does he have to offer? If I don't want to get married, can he force me? The system didn't say anything for a long time. It was not until Demon chased after me and its voice rang out in my mind again. You're right. Arya. What's wrong with you? Demon came up and grabbed my wrist, frowning. Why are you being so willful today? Marriage is such a big thing. How can you say you don't want to get married just like that? How am I supposed to explain this to my parents? I rolled my eyes at him. Just tell them it's me who doesn't want to get married. What's so hard to say? If you think it's too much trouble, then we might as well break up. Hearing the words break up, he pursed his lips. After a while, he coaxed me gently. Okay. If you don't want to get married now, we won't. Everything is up to you. Don't say the word break up again. You know I only want you in this life. I don't want anyone else. As soon as he finished speaking, the system's sarcastic voice rang out. I don't want anyone else. EWW. The child in the countryside is already 2 years old. How dare he say such things? It's so disgusting. I was almost unable to hold back my laughter because of its funny tone. I forced myself to think about all the sad things in my life to suppress the corners of my mouth that were about to turn up. I didn't respond to Demon and turned around to leave. He wasn't angry either. He followed me eagerly and got into the passenger seat. All the way, he tried to find topics to talk about. Annoyed, I dropped him off downstairs at his place and left. As soon as I got home, my parents surrounded me. Arya? Why are you back so early? Weren't you going to get the marriage certificate with Demon? Where is he? My mother stretched her head to look behind me. I raised my hand and pushed her head back, saying casually, I'm not getting married. I left him at home. What's going on? My father's eyes wide, and when he heard this. On the way, in order to gain my trust, the system also told me other things. That even brought up the fact that I wet the bed at the age of 3 and secretly washed my pants. By the time I got home, I had completely believed it. Omitting the part about the system, I dropped a bombshell on my parents. There's a so-called distant cousin living in his house. I heard she's the child bride in waiting bought by his parents for him. They grew up together. Their son is already 2 years old now. My parents. Both of them gasped at the same time. After a few seconds, my mother said in disbelief, How credible is this? I answered her without hesitation. 100%. Dad. I suspect that Demon's approach to me has ulterior motives. I'm afraid he'll harm our family. Can you help me investigate him? Even without evidence. My parents have absolute trust in me. Seeing me so certain, my father immediately called someone to start investigating Demon. Taking this opportunity, I asked the system, if I break up with Demon, will my fate be rewritten? The system replied, it's not that simple. Even if you break up with him, he will find other ways to pester you. There's even a possibility that he'll fight you to the bitter end. So, in order to completely change the originally tragic ending, we must expose Diamond's family and make sure they can no longer cause trouble. Not believing it, I immediately sent Demon a breakup text message. He only replied with 4 words, I know. I thought this matter would end there. But as the system said, it was not that simple. Early the next morning, Demon, without making a sound, brought his parents to the downstairs of my company. I was working at that time when the front desk called, saying that someone was looking for me downstairs. As soon as I went down to the lobby, his mother, Maleficent, rushed towards me. A middle-aged woman with a weather-beaten face knelt down in front of me in full view of everyone and pleaded, Arya, what's going on? Why do you suddenly want to break up with Demon? Are you dislike our family is poor? But you've already promised Demon to get the marriage certificate. You said you didn't mind before. Are you going back on your word now? Everyone in our village knows about your relationship. Our family can't afford to lose this face. Auntie is kneeling down to beg you. Please get the marriage certificate with Demon. Maleficent's voice was extremely loud, and her humble pleading echoed in the hall. For a moment, people coming and going all cast sidelong glances in my direction. Mom, don't do this. It's all my fault. I couldn't give Arya the life she wants. Even if she dislikes me. It's understandable. I'm just unfilial. If Arya really doesn't want to marry me, then I won't get married in this life. I'll keep waiting for her to change her mind. Demon had a sorrowful expression on his face. He pretended to reach out to help Maleficent, but he couldn't get her up for quite a while. His father was quietly wiping his tears beside. The whole family looked extremely pitiful. The place where I work now is a small company under my family's group. My father gave it to me to gain some experience. The office space only takes up 2 floors. There are also employees from other companies in the office building. They don't know me. Seeing there was a commotion, they gathered around one after another. Some people were already whispering nearby. I heard someone say that I was a gold digger and irresponsible. Seeing this, Maleficent cried even louder and more dramatically. The system was so angry, and it started cursing. She's so despicable. Host, they're morally blackmailing you. I smiled. So what? Demon still didn't know me well enough. He looked at me with a troubled expression, pretending to be doing it for my own good. Arya, so many people are watching. It doesn't look good. Just listen to my mom. As long as we go and get the marriage certificate as usual tomorrow, she won't make a scene anymore. Okay? The system said. He's daydreaming. The abacus beads are almost hitting me in the face. Demon didn't know he was being criticized. Seeing that my expression was getting worse, he thought he had me under control and continued to press his advantage. Don't worry. If you think my home is not big enough, I can move in with you. This time it was my turn to be speechless. He really had ambitious plans. He couldn't wait to move into my house even before getting married. Did Demon really think that only his family could act? I lowered my head, and when I raised it again, my eyes were filled with tears. I didn't say I didn't want to marry you, but you not only haven't given me a single cent of betrothal gift, you're not even willing to hold a wedding. Tell me, which girl wouldn't mind? Sisters here. If it were you, would you be willing? As soon as I said this, all the women present, whether married or unmarried, looked at Demon and his family with contempt. Some hot-tempered ones immediately showed their disgust. What kind of person is this? This is just trying to get something for nothing. And they have the nerve to come here and morally blackmail this girl. Demon quickly explained. No, it's not like that. Arya, it's not that I don't want to give you the betrothal gift and the wedding. But you know my current situation. Didn't I tell you? My parents need money recently. And I've given them all my money. How can I come up with hundreds of thousands of you on all of a sudden? Let's get the marriage certificate first. And I'll make it up to you later. Okay? After he finished speaking, some people empathized with him. A middle-aged man with a cigarette in his mouth said angrily in the crowd, "Brother, I understand you. It's really damn expensive to marry a wife these days. They ask for hundreds of thousands or even millions. We're all ordinary people. Where can we find so much money? At the end of the day, we have to take out loans. And after giving the money to the bride's family, we can't get anything back. It's a huge loss." Although Demon didn't say anything, I noticed that he nodded slightly in agreement. The man kept complaining, talking about how much effort he had put into marrying a wife. But the next second, a woman with a cold face walked up from behind. As soon as the man saw her, he immediately became submissive and his complaints stopped abruptly. The woman didn't say a word. She raised her hand and slapped him. "When I married into your family, I not only had to take care of you, but also your parents. I haven't been able to go back to my own home several times. Even nannies get paid. What about me? After marrying you for so many years, what have I got? Every day after work, as soon as you get home, you take off your shoes and lie on the bed playing with your phone. And I still have to cook and wash the dishes for you all. Not to mention that you yourself insisted on giving so much wertvoll gift back then. And it was later used for the decoration. Now, you're blaming me, right? If you had moved into my family back then, I could have given you the money too. You want the woman to go home with you, but you don't want to make any efforts. Where in the world is there such a good thing? Sexist. If you're so unhappy, then let's get a divorce. That way, you don't have to keep talking about me to others outside every day." By the end, the woman's eyes were red. She gave the man a fierce glare and then turned and ran away. The man panicked immediately. He didn't have the mood to watch the excitement anymore and quickly chased after her. As soon as he left, everyone's attention shifted back to Demon. Demon looked embarrassed. I pressed on. "Demon, I won't agree to getting married first and then making up for the formalities later. Don't act like I'm after your family's money. My parents will give me a dowry. Marriage is not a joke. It's not that you can't afford the money. You just don't want to. There's no room for negotiation. You can go back. It's over between us." Demon pursed his lips and thought for a long time. Then promised me, having fulfilled my obsession. I didn't think it through. "Arya, don't worry. My parents aren't in a hurry. I'll get the money back first to hold a wedding for us. And then I'll figure out how to make money for them later. Don't break up with me. Okay?" Before I could say anything, Maleficent jumped up first. She spat and raised her voice. "No way. Don't even think about it. That's my money. Is this wedding really that important? Can't we just get the marriage certificate first? I think you're just a gold digger." As she spoke, she tugged at Demon's father. "Villain. Old man. Say something." Villain cleared his throat and looked at me. "Arya, is there really no room for negotiation?" I nodded. He sighed and turned to Demon. "Demon, when on a low sigh. I'll listen to you. The house in our hometown isn't urgent to repair. After we go back, your mom and I will transfer the money back to you. We can't let you not be able to marry a wife, no matter how hard it is." When Maleficent heard this, she almost jumped up, but with just one look from Villain, she became obedient. "Arya, you wait. I'll come to visit your uncle and aunt in a couple of days." After getting Villain's promise, the tense expression on Demon's face finally relaxed. No matter how reluctant Maleficent was, she couldn't do anything. The family came here aggressively but left in a dejected manner. As soon as they left, the onlookers around dispersed. The system, which had been silent for a long time, finally spoke. "Host, why didn't you just expose the fact that he has a wife and child back in his hometown? There were so many people here today. Word would spread quickly, and Demon and his family's reputation would be ruined. Then you wouldn't have to agree to marry him." I thought to myself that the system was still too naive. Even if I exposed them today, without evidence, as long as they stubbornly refused to admit it, I couldn't do anything to them. Instead, it would alert them. After analyzing the interests to the system one by one, It suddenly understood. I'm still not smart enough. It seems I need to learn more about the cunning of you humans. I said, speechless lie. It's not cunning. It's called strategy. Actually, there was another reason why I didn't directly expose Demon. Because I thought it was too easy to just let him go like this. What the system said, when thought about carefully, wasn't just cold words. It was very likely to be something that had really happened. It just hadn't happened to me at this time. If the system hadn't appeared, then I would eventually end up with that tragic ending. I've never been a particularly kind-hearted person. Judging from Dylan's appearance just now, he should also know what Demon was trying to do. Since they dared to do it, they had to bear the consequences of failure. Simply making them stop pestering me wasn't enough. 2 days later, Demon came to visit with big and small bags of gift. Hello, Uncle and Aunt. I've prepared the betrothal gift. What do you think? When would be a suitable time to hold the wedding? My parents mean the sooner the better. After the wedding, I'll go and get the marriage certificate with Arya. He sat by the coffee table, speaking gently as he sought our opinions. At my signal, my father said, "There's no rush. Let's wait for a while. Before, we only introduced you to our family members. There are other people you haven't met yet. What we mean is, we'll hold a banquet first so that you can get to know some of our business partners. It'll be more convenient for you when you enter the company later. What do you think?" When Demon heard this, he was overjoyed and stopped urging for an early marriage. With my father's words, he thought everything was settled and quickly stood up. I have no objections. I'll follow your arrangements, Uncle and Aunt. With this foundation, he had a pleasant conversation with my father. When it was time for dinner, my mother said at the right moment, "Demon, it's getting late. Your parents are probably already missing you. We won't keep you for dinner. You'd better go back early." Demon didn't object and kept saying yes. As soon as he left, my father slumped on the sofa. Damn it. Pretending was so tiring for me. You hadn't fulfilled my assertion. Luckily you didn't keep him for dinner. Otherwise, I might have to get up in the middle of the night to have a snack. Just the sight of him makes me too disgusted to eat. My mother smiled and patted him. Is it that exaggerated? You bet it is. My father said discontentedly. You've seen those materials too. My father was referring to the information someone had sent him after he had Demon investigated. Demon's family are all bad. The girl they left in their hometown was abducted. She started living in their house when she was 7 or 8 years old. They didn't raise her for nothing. They made her do all kinds of work at a young age. Cooking, washing clothes, feeding chickens and pigs, chopping firewood, carrying water. She had to do everything she could. If she didn't do well, she would not only be beaten but also not get any food. She got pregnant not long after she came of age. She's really a poor girl. No wonder she always seemed so submissive when I saw her before. Growing up in such an environment. If her personality was too strong, either Demon and his family would die or she would. When I first got this information, a plan came to my mind. If you want your enemies to end up in a lose-lose situation, you have to push them to the brink. I planned to get involved myself and play a big game with them. The banquet a week later was the best opportunity. Time passed quickly, and the banquet started as scheduled. My father invited all the business partners he could and their families. Guests in expensive gowns were coming and going in the banquet hall. Demon was afraid that his parents would mess things up, so he didn't originally want to bring them. Only after my repeated requests did he reluctantly agree to bring them along. At this time, Maleficent was exaggerated, shoving all kinds of pastries into her mouth, causing the guests around her to show great disgust. Dylan beside her was much more restrained, but he couldn't control his curious eyes. Every time someone looked over, he would immediately withdraw his gaze from scanning the hall. He looked extremely sneaky. Demon, standing on the stage, saw this scene and felt extremely embarrassed. Just as he was about to go down and stop it, my father put his arm around his shoulder in a friendly way. My father picked up the microphone and said hello. Hello twice. The extremely penetrating voice made the guests stop talking one after another and look towards the stage. Demon knew that the next part was to introduce his identity. So he retracted his outstretched foot. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very glad you've come to my daughter's engagement party. Allow me to introduce this young man beside me. His name is Demon. And he's my daughter's fiancé. As he spoke, he handed the microphone to Demon and patted him on the shoulder. Demon, come on. The stage is yours. Demon adjusted his cuffs, took the microphone, first introduced himself confidently, and then changed to an affectionate look, starting to talk about how he met me and how we fell in love. I've recorded all the beautiful moments I've spent with Arya. I originally planned to play them at our wedding ceremony, but I just couldn't hold back. She's really wonderful, and I love her very much. I'm honored to be engaged to her. Arya, I promise you here that I will never let you down in this life. After he finished speaking, he turned his head backward, according to the prayer-again process. At this moment, the big screen behind Demon should start playing the video of me and him. On the screen, a man and a woman appeared in front of everyone. The man was him, but the woman was not me. The woman in tattered clothes hugged her head and curled up on the ground, allowing the man beside her to punch and kick her. Let you talk back. Let you talk back. Is the meat on the table for you to eat? You low-class thing. Don't think you're qualified to sit at the table just because you gave me a son. Beat you to death. See if you dare next time. As the man's violent words came, the guests in the hall were in an uproar. Demon's face turned deathly pale in an instant. He picked up the microphone in a flurry and loudly explained. It's fake. It's all fake. Someone is trying to frame me. This is a synthesized video. The next moment, the microphone was directly muted. His voice was instantly drowned out in the noisy discussions. Helplessly, he threw down the microphone and turned to ask the staff to turn off the video. No one stopped him. I walked onto the stage, picked up the microphone on the ground. The backstage staff turned on the microphone's permission. Dear guests, as you can see, my fiancé here is not a good person. This poor girl was abducted by his family. She was forced to conceive his child not long after she turned 18. And now the child is already 2 years old. I was blind and almost got tricked by him into getting the marriage certificate. Originally, having fulfilled what I didn't plan to expose such a scandal. But when I thought that if it wasn't me being deceived, it would be other innocent girls. Especially all the uncles and aunts here who have only daughters in their families. I think you can guess what he's up to without me having to say it. I hope you can remember his face. This is the purpose of my holding this banquet, I said firmly. Immediately after, a paternity test appeared on the big screen. Everyone present could see clearly that Demon indeed had a biological child. After tonight, this matter would spread throughout our circle and the entire internet. This meant that Demon's plan to deceive others was doomed to failure. When I made this decision, both the system and my parents asked me if I wasn't afraid of it having a bad impact on me. I told them, I don't want any other girls to be deceived by him. As for the bad impact? So what? As long as I'm strong enough, no one will dare to gossip about me in front of me. As long as I don't hear it, they can say whatever they want. In this life, who can make everyone like them? Moreover, if I didn't push them hard, how would they try to harm me severely? I didn't tell this to my parents. If they knew, they would definitely oppose me. As soon as I finished speaking, Demon rushed up to grab my microphone, and the security guards beside me quickly stopped him. I slowly walked up to him. He glared at me hatefully. Arya, did you do all this? Is it you? I curled my lips. Of course. You didn't really think I was going to marry you, did you? You scumbag. The man struggled continuously in the hands of the security guards. Maleficent and her husband also rushed up screaming and punching and kicking the security guards. But they were quickly controlled. Maleficent spat and cursed. Let go of my son. You, a woman, having fulfilled my obsession. How dare you deceive us? My son taking a fancy to you is your honor. Be sensible and let us go quickly. And then hand the company over to my son. Otherwise, don't even think about entering my house. A woman should stay at home and take care of her husband and children. The one holding her down was a female security guard. She secretly moved and stepped on Maleficent's hand with her foot. A puck-like scream instantly resounded through the venue. I glanced down at her condescending. Your son is a useless good-for-nothing. I wouldn't even want him if he were given to me for free. Demon's eyes were red and bloodshot. At this time, Dylan suddenly shouted. Video faking is so easy these days. You just look down on our poor family. You clearly promised my son and accepted so much betrothal gift. And now you say you won't get married. It's a marriage fraud. I'm going to call the police and arrest you. As soon as he finished speaking, a man suddenly rushed onto the stage and started beating Dylan and the others without saying a word. While beating, he choked back sobs and cursed. No need for you to call the police. The police will be here soon. You two child traffickers. My daughter was so young. How could you steal her away and treat her like this? The child I held dear in my hands was bullied like this by you. Why don't you just die? Die. If it wasn't for you, my wife wouldn't have died. She was still muttering seeing our daughter before she died. The man's plaintive accusation made everyone's eyes turn red. After venting, he slumped to the ground, covering his face and crying bitterly. This plainly dressed man was named Benevolent. He originally had a happy and harmonious family. His wife was understanding, and his daughter was lively and cute. But one day, when his daughter was playing in front of the house, she was secretly carried away. By the time Benevolent heard the noise and came out, the child was already gone. He only saw an unlicensed van speeding away. The couple felt as if the sky had fallen. In order to find their child, they searched from the south to the north, working while looking for her. In their free time, they would go out to distribute missing person notices. 1 year. 2 years. As time passed bit by bit, there was still no news of the child. His wife couldn't bear the blow and fell ill directly. Her physical condition deteriorated day by day. Until she died. She was still muttering finding her daughter. The disappearance of his daughter and the death of his wife almost broke Benevolent. He thought about committing suicide. But thinking that his daughter might still be suffering somewhere, the man became strong again and continued his journey to find his daughter with his wife's last wish. Perhaps even heaven couldn't bear to watch. As soon as I got the information, I started helping Hope find her biological parents. I originally thought it would take a lot of time. But unexpectedly, in just a few days, I actually found them. When Demon brought his parents here, that poor girl was locked at home with a chain. And they only left her a few expired breads and a basin of water. When my people found her, she was almost starved to death. Fortunately, having fulfilled my obsession, we arrived in time. Otherwise, she might have died without anyone knowing. Compared to the suffering Hope endured, the child she gave birth to was relatively better. Before the three of them left, they handed the child to a relative in the village to take care of. After all, it was Maleficent's beloved grandson, and they didn't mistreat him. When Hope heard that she could leave, she didn't hesitate at all and came out with us. The video of her being beaten shown on the big screen was secretly recorded by a young man in the village. He originally wanted to call the police, but his family stopped him. They were afraid of getting into trouble. After I found out, I bought it with money. Hope had also seen it. Before playing this video at the banquet, I asked for her opinion. She said as long as Demon and the others could be punished, she didn't mind. So, there was the scene that happened at the venue just now. The police arrived soon. To my surprise, Hope also came. She was holding a 2-year-old child and helped Benevolent, who was on the ground, stand up and move to the side. The relationship between the child and Demon was self-evident. When Maleficent and Dylan saw the police, their arrogant demeanor immediately disappeared. The three of them were taken away on the spot. In the end, Dylan and Maleficent were sentenced to death for child trafficking. And the number of people they trafficked was large, with serious circumstances. Since Demon didn't participate, and there was no evidence indicating that Hope was forced at that time, he didn't receive any punishment. On the day of the verdict, he stared at me with cold eyes. I looked back frivolously and even provocatively smiled at him. Host, you have to be careful. I have a feeling he might do something bad to you. The system said worriedly. I smiled slightly. That's exactly what I want. I was still worried he'd turn into a coward. Do you think he really knew nothing and didn't participate at all? The system said. I don't know. It's not mentioned in my data. Although there is no evidence. I don't think so. While I was talking to the system, Hope came over with benevolent. She smiled at me and softly said goodbye. Miss Arya. I'm leaving. I want to go with my dad to see my mom. Thank you for everything you've done for us. I handed her the lily in my hand. Congratulations on your new life. Her eyes filled with tears. She took the bouquet and said hesitantly. I saw the malicious look in Demon's eyes when he left. You'd better be more careful. I nodded to show I understood. Then she and Benevolent left. As she passed by me, I heard her whisper to me. My name is Hope. Miss Arya. Nice to meet you. Goodbye. The system was filled with emotion. It's really a beautiful name. Her parents hoped she'd be safe. But unfortunately, fate played tricks on her. The Demon family really deserves to die. It's a pity that Demon got away. Otherwise, the progress bar of rewriting the life would be at 100. I said. Don't worry. It won't be long. He can't let me go. This matter had already spread on the internet. His parents were both sentenced to death, and he couldn't have the idea of taking over the property of the childless anymore. With his background, few people dared to hire him to work. Pushed to this point, he was likely to fight me to the bitter end. Sure enough, 5 days later, the fish took the bait. When I was rushing from the company to my new residence, the system reminded me that there was a sneaky man following me. After hearing the reminder, instead of walking towards crowded places, I walked towards the deserted riverside. While walking, I also called the police. The system was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, worried that something might happen to me. When I reached the riverside and just squatted down, I felt someone approaching from behind. The footsteps were getting closer. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Demon take out a knife from his pocket. He approached me, put the knife in front of my neck, and whispered in my ear. I was thinking about how to kill you silently. But I didn't expect you to seek death and give me a chance. There are neither cameras nor people here. Even if you drown here, no one will know it was me who did it. Arya, go die. After he finished speaking, he pushed me hard. Ah, host. The system let out a shrill cry in my mind. It probably thought I was doomed. So did Demon. Originally, he planned to push me down and hold me down on the shore to prevent me from coming up. But he didn't expect that I would drag him into the water with me. Since my original destination was in the water, then, let it all end in the water. After being dragged into the water by me, Demon instinctively stabbed me with the knife. Unfortunately, having so sadly, he wasn't as good at swimming as I was. And he couldn't kill me. After a fierce struggle, the oxygen was almost used up, and he desperately struggled to float up, but it was in vain. Because I held him tightly underwater. When I was squatting by the riverside just now, I actually picked up a sharp stone. I took the stone and slashed at him hard. Blood spread in the water, and bubbles started to come out of his mouth and nose. Soon, let out a low sigh. His struggle weakened. His body slowly sank, watching him sink to the bottom of the river. I then emerged from the water in a sorry state. As soon as I surfaced, I saw the lights of the police car on the roadside flashing continuously. The police rushed over and rescued me from the water. The skin exposed outside my body was covered with wounds. Some scratched by stones and some pierced by the knife. After being saved, I burst into tears and stuttering described what had just happened to them. Demon didn't know that after I called the police, I didn't hang up the phone but kept it connected. Because I was wearing Bluetooth headphones. The operator heard every word he said in my ear clearly. In the end, Demon failed to kill me and instead sank to the bottom of the river. I was just a victim and it was self-defense. At the moment of his death, the system prompted, "Congratulations, host. The life has been rewritten successfully." It only stayed serious for 1 second. Then it started crying. Woo woo. I was so scared just now. I thought you were going to die. I'd done so many missions and have never failed. If I failed in the mission, it would be a small matter. But you could really lose your life. Don't joke with your life anymore in the future. Do you know how precious life is? I had just finished fighting with Demon. So I could only weakly promise it. This is the last time. I've completed the mission. Then you. I didn't finish my sentence. The system knew what I wanted to ask. Its voice was cheerful. Of course I'm going to leave. There are still many people waiting for me. I was stunned for a moment, and it took me a while to come back to my senses. All good things must come to an end. Although I was very reluctant to part with it. As it said, there were many people like me who needed it. So I didn't stop it out of selfishness. Arya. I'm leaving. The system said. The next second, I clearly felt it detaching. And the connection between me and it was getting weaker bit by bit. I felt a bit sad and didn't know what to say for a long time. When it was about to disappear, I said softly, I'm glad to have known you. Before I leave, I'll give you a blessing. The system asked, what kind of blessing? I said sincerely, may every one of your rescues never fail. It was very happy, gave a giggle, and left me with the last two sentences in my mind. Of course. I'm hope after all.